It's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 251. No milestone this week, just regular old us. I am one of your hosts, Steve Wright. Joining me, Ben Salter. Hello, Ben. Do you have grease paint on your face? Are you geared up and ready to go?
Oh, because I thought you were. I was thinking it's a sports show. I was thinking of Kiss at the AFL Grand Final last week when you're talking about like hockey grease paint, not like full old rocker in the middle of the MCG. Different sport.
I've never seen a hockey player. I'm thinking like the two big black smears on. I guess that's like gridiron football.
What sport is that? It wouldn't make sense. Hockey.
It doesn't. Yeah, but whatever. So we're not talking about gridiron football, but we are talking about other sports because it's sports month and Spider-Man month and Mario month. October is a big month, Ben, and I'm already tired.
Yeah, well, that's why we're saving those for later. We're just getting through the massive backlog of sports games that we've been playing. Or a little bit been playing. The big one to kick us off is kind of the EA trio, or the EA duo, because we don't really care about Madden whenever that came out. So
that was a couple months ago anyway. Doesn't work.
Out.
Anyway.
Don't they have another one? Golf or something? Surely there's... Anyway, maybe that's out as well.
Golf came out a while ago too. They have a lot of sports. What we do know... WRC is coming out, but we're not talking about World Champion Rally Racing. WRC.
Okay, well, not a fact-based show. What we do know is they've got a new, I keep wanting to say FIFA, but it's now called EA Sports FC 24 and NHL. So they're their two games that actually have just come out.
I like how you said EA Sports I keep calling it FIFA.
Yeah, it's tough.
We're gonna call it FIFA. You said tough. EA Football Club with such like vigor, and then you went and NHL, where clearly
one, that's how EA sees these games as well, and two, I was trying to remember the name. The not FIFA. They've clearly. I've noticed if you group your games like me by letter on Xbox, a bunch of the old games now come up as EA Sports, FIFA, whatever. So they're now under E. Yeah. And I suspect that's so. Maybe they've always been there, but I didn't really look. That's so they can all go together.
Hockey is a bit of a crapshoot because sometimes they're listed as EA Sports NHL and sometimes they're listed as NHL. I think largely they're now NHL 20 numbered. But anyway. No one cares but me. I know you've played a bit of Football Club. I've played none because I'm bad at it. But something that we're quickly learning is that there's probably a lot of similarity, at least in monetization mechanics between the two. And I would probably wager that there's a lot of similar mechanics control-wise as well. So I'll give you an NHL talk that is maybe an FC talk as well. With NHL, the biggest changes are they've made this big stink about this thing called the exhaust system, and it's like if you're the offensive team, and you're attacking and you're in the defensive zone or the other team's defensive zone. If you're in the attacking zone and you're putting the pressure on the other team, there's like a little pressure meter that starts showing that you're putting pressure on. And then like things get more spectacular, or like maybe you're more likely to score. But like, is that a system or is that just kind of how sports works in general? Like if you have possession of the ball or the puck, I'm going to try to make this a football thing too. Yeah. And you're putting shots on the goal and you keep getting the ball and you keep putting on that pressure. Like, is that a video game system or is that just kind of the sport? Like, is it a chicken or the egg scenario in this scenario? That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I don't really know how this pressure system actually works. Like, are you just guaranteed to score if you're in the zone for, like, a couple minutes because it just keeps, like, tilting chance to your favor? Or is it just, like you've put on 10 shots, so the 10th one went in. Yay for you being skilled. Do you know what I'm trying to get at with that, I guess, to start with?
Yeah, which I suppose is kind of accurate to these type of games because they're similar in that they're two games with you're trying to keep up your shot count and you've got a goalie, so it's not as easy as just tapping it in.
Yeah.
But for that to work in a video game, at some point there needs to be a mechanic which says the goalie doesn't get that one. Like it's all ultimately determined by the game. And of course it comes down probably more in Football Club, not FIFA. To kind of how you aim and the type of shot and timing it right, because often the goalie moves off their line and you need to kind of get it kind of spot on and you're a lot more chance to get a goal then. But there is still at some point you can adjust the sliders if you really want. You can have the goalie be amazing and basically never miss anything, or you can have them be terrible and miss everything.
Yeah.
The default is somewhere in the middle. So like there has to be a system that allows that.
Well, and that all applies to hockey too. So like,
yeah.
I feel like anything we say about one is basically applied to the other.
Same game. Yeah.
Pretty much. One's on ice, one's on the grass. But like, so something that I'm worried about as trying to make examples of my concerns here, like it's not an issue for football club, but it is for hockey. Like, no, the servers are all in Canada and you're playing in Australia, and like you can feel the ping. So if you're kind of already at a disadvantage and you're like a little bit like 1 or 2 steps behind your online opponent, and they know they can just kind of skate circles in your end and like have that pressure meter just build up and up and up and up and up. Like there's already, I'm sure there's glitch goals and stuff in football club where like, you know, people, if they hit the right scenario, they basically guaranteed a goal. Like if people have that up their sleeve and this kind of like, oh, I'll just kind of remain untouchable for so many seconds, and then like this goal is definitely going to go in when I put a shot on net. Like, is that good? Doesn't seem good to me.
Yeah, I know, and I haven't played any of Football Club online, and I don't really play sport games online because I find it's too much of an investment and too annoying.
Yeah.
But there's definitely elements of that. There's another mode if you're playing on something which makes star players be more challenging or more superstar-y or something, which looks like it's been added in this year. Not a fact-based show. I haven't researched it too much, but it's kind of that thing of like, I suppose I can see why they're doing that because that does happen in real life. It's the Sam Kerr effect of you've got one player who's way better than all the rest, and eventually they're going to win the game for you. That's kind of the strategy of Australia's women's soccer team, basically. So I assume it's the strategy of other teams as well.
Pity it didn't quite work, but it was close.
Well, she wasn't really playing that much.
Nah.
But yeah, there's kind of that. The game as a whole, so like they've revamped it to be like we're not FIFA anymore. We're now our own thing. We own the right licensing to this, and there's a lot of that. And there's new terminology. It's been on Frostbite for ages, but now it's like super fancy something, HyperX, whatever,
motion
Frostbite
X,
something.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called, dumb names. As we've broken the news on this show like years ago. One of our first episodes, we accidentally revealed what we knew, which was that it was all nonsense. The motion Ignite, and what was that called? Ignite. That was like
Ignite
all a lie,
engine.
basically.
Yeah.
It was all just marketing, and that's why they then ultimately went to Frostbite. It didn't really exist, not to the degree that they said that it did. Yeah, it's all the same again. It's all just buzz terms, and they've given us a more usable menu because some previous FIFA ones would really bury stuff. You'd have to dig if you want something specific, but they've showed it how they see it. So you open the game and it's now Ultimate Team front and center. You really have to go down quite far just to get to kickoff now.
Yeah.
And that's because one, I suppose that's where people play most of their time, and they know that. And two, it's where they make all their money.
Well, yeah, and so the same is true for hockey now. So first, I guess the big news at the start of this week was that there's a $30 US Ultimate Team pack that is only valid, or can only be purchased during this early access period. Because now, if you buy the Super Bells and Whistles game edition, which is $100 US, when we're talking NHL, it's like 140 Australian. You get 3 days early access, and in that 3 days early access period, you could buy like a $30 pack that had, like 80 plus level players to take online against other people. And like you could only get those packs in the early access period. So you'd already paid more to play the game early. And EA's kind of like, if you pay a little bit more on top of that, like you'll have this, loot box-esque card pack that you can open that maybe gives you an advantage against the plebs who, start 3 days from now. It's exactly the same in NHL. Different monetary values, pretty close though, and like the same kind of scheme. If you open up World of Chell, which is kind of this like online hub for 3v3 or like different game modes, but it's all like the multiplayer stuff. Like once you set up your player and you say, let me explore, it just takes you to the store tab of this hub. It's like, oh, cool. Like, so you just want me to buy things. And then like one tab over is the new battle pass for NHL that's never existed. So like, if you buy the Super Bells and Whistles edition, which I did to start playing 3 days early so I could review it and not have to wait for the real release date, Thanks, EA. Like you get the battle pass for free with the super expensive edition, but if you bought the normal edition, you have to pay for the battle pass, which gives you cosmetics like Fortnite style, which is just everything about the game is basically just asking you to pay more money, and it's really disgusting. And it's always been disgusting when I think about like the Ultimate Teams, but people love them clearly because EA's doubling down on it, and it's unfortunate.
It's always the mode I haven't really played, so I liked it in FIFA last year. I remember it was the year before. They really revamped the career mode, which hadn't been touched for ages, and now that's just going to be let ride for years because they're like, look, we updated it once. Now it's going to be the same because we just keep doing Volta and Ultimate Team.
That's exactly what happened with NHL. Be a Pro mode got like updated to something sort of resembling, what was it called? Like the Journey in FIFA?
Oh, yeah, that came and went.
Yeah.
That lasted 3 years. That was a long journey.
Well, yeah. So, like, Be a Pro, you start, it's exactly the same opening that you've had 2 or 3 years, or even 4 years probably at this point. It's just like, oh, man. They got one new commentator in, so at least it's, like, slightly different, commentary as you're playing, but it's just, like, everything feels the same. They've done... The biggest change that I think they kind of swept under the rug in NHL, there's like entirely new control scheme. So I don't know how it quite works with football, but like in hockey, your left stick, skill stick, is skating, and your right stick is like your thumbstick on your controller is your stick in hockey. So you pull this right stick back and you wind up and you bang it forward and you take your shot, and you can use that to aim, and like that's how it also used to work. And you could use the bumpers and stuff to pull off like dekes, so like you move the puck from left to right, or you like knock it through, like you're dribbling, you knock it through your feet and like grab it back on the other side, those kind of things. Now there's this total control mode where like Street Fighter 6 style, like, I don't know how to do this, do it for me. So instead of doing this crazy deke that involved all this dexterity and like button pressing, like, you just hit one button and it just does it for you. Do you know what a lacrosse or a Michigan goal is in hockey?
I know of lacrosse, the sport, vaguely.
So it starts behind the net, and Trevor Zegras was the cover guy last year, and he was pretty famous for doing these kind of goals. They're very infrequent because they take a lot of talent. I can do it in real life myself playing hockey, but like you got to give me a lot of time, and don't pressure me. I'll get it there. Wow. Oh no, like I'm really bad at it. Yeah. So you basically like you start with your hockey blade on top of the puck. And you kind of flip it so the puck is sitting on your stick like a spatula kind of thing, like you've gone for a pancake. And then you have to kind of like do this weird move above your head, but not too above your head, because then there's rules about, where your stick height is. But like you take the puck and you basically kind of like lacrosse it into the net. It's crazy when it happens in real life. It's like it takes a lot of skill and timing, and like it's very impressive. But now you can do it in this game with one button press. So it went super arcadey with all these changes, where coupled with all the stuff I was talking about before with like the pressure modes and stuff, like, and a new hitting system, physics system, where if like you hit some against the boards, apparently the glass is going to break quite often. Like, it's cool and a spectacle. It's very entertaining, but like if everyone can pull off these crazy ass moves and like one button press and like break glass left and right, like, is it a simulator anymore, or is it just kind of like an arcade style thing with a whole bunch of cash grab elements tacked onto it? And do I want my sports game, I love my NHL, to go in that direction? The answer is no.
Sounds like it's already gone there.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if FC is bad. It's probably worse because it's like bringing in way more money than NHL, but who knows?
I haven't played enough to really know. What was FIFA often bounces between being a super arcadey year and then a totally different, more simulation type of year. They definitely have added more assists. Like you can see that. I think by default it's like a score assist is now a thing. Maybe that was there in previous years and I just turned it off. I didn't notice. I forgot about it. But it's kind of like if you have a quick chance to shoot, you can make that just automatically happen now. You can have header assists. That's the thing people probably struggle with the most, is timing that from corners is quite difficult if you don't know what to do. So you can automate all that now. So I mean, I guess that's super arcadey. Like that's kind of, you can turn that stuff off though. It depends what level of assist you want.
Yeah, well, and it kind of went back to what you were saying before. Like, if you're playing on your own and you want to just hit a button to do these cool moves, great. Like, if you're playing online and you're trying to be like the more like traditional style, like use the skill stick and try to pull off these dexterous moves, and your opponents just, like taking advantage of ping and hit one button like super cool deking you. Like, I don't know if that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
But like 2K used to do an NHL game, and it was very arcade minded, and it was so much fun. So like there is room in my heart for an arcade style game, but like it feels like this is trying to do both at the same time. And if you're on your own doing it, it doesn't, like, you can go either way and it's fine. But as soon as you bring in like the multiplayer element of which they really want you to with Ultimate Team and all these things, like, then it's going to be dicey, I think, is where I'm sitting.
Makes it tough. But yeah, I've never really played any sport game online. I played heaps local multiplayer, and I think they all shine like that. But I feel like online's different kettle of fish. You just don't have that parity between players.
Yeah, well, let's get off this and on to another game that I have reviewed quickly. We'll get back to you at the end. I reviewed... Yes, by the time you've heard this, it's been like a week. Forza Motorsport, the car game for car people, is I think what I called the review. And I played a bunch of this online because it's weird. It's so the way that I framed my review is this: like I'm a Top Gear fan, and I know you are too. And I guess it's the Grand Tour. You know what I'm talking about? That kind of format of a car show. But like I very much gravitate towards the comedians and the stupid things they do. And like when they get into like the really car things, I kind of glaze over and don't care. I am very much a Forza Horizon person in that respect. I don't mind car racing, but I like the stuff around the car racing equally, if not more, than like tire pressure and things. Forza Motorsport is going to be, theoretically, like Halo Infinite was going to be the live service thing for this franchise. Hopefully it works a little bit better. It is very, very simulator and very not arcade, in stark contrast to what we were talking about. To the point where, like, it felt like a third job. Like, Stevivor's my second job. I pay the bills with my first one, and then I was coming home to like
driver.
I was coming literally to get in my practice laps, to get in my qualifying laps, and then to actually do the bloody race that I was supposed to do. And it was enjoyable, but it also felt like a slog. But I was also learning quite a bit about cars, to the point where I was playing online, which it was just multiplayer with like hardly anybody because it was pre-release. But there was this guy who was like easily like besting my laps by like 30 seconds a lap, like just killing me, destroying me. I'm like, oh well, I'll race this guy and I'll see how I go. But I knew enough about what I'd been playing with my, putting as much gas in for, the laps that I need, as opposed to filling my tank up and, like really trying to calculate what I was doing. We were just on the Indy 500, 400 lap thing, just basically doing circles. And it was a 20 lap race, and he was like clearly ahead, but I was starting to catch up by like lap 7 or 8 because he was starting to fishtail. His tires were going. My tires were fine. I had like 3 laps of petrol left, and he did a pit stop at, I don't know, I can't remember anymore. It's in the review. He did a pit stop way too early, and I'm like, oh, well, I've got him now. And I remembered actually thinking, I've got him now. He was destroying me, and I took an extra lap and a half, did a perfect pit stop, like perfectly timed. My tires were starting to go, but not too badly. I had enough petrol. I could do the extra laps while he was, like behind me. I got in my pit stop like at a good point in this 19 lap race, kept going. He caught up to me again by like lap 16 or 17, but he'd overextended himself again. His tires were going. He was starting to fishtail. I just destroyed him by like a minute in the end. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm sort of a car guy because I understood all these like complex things, and it was quite enjoyable. But it still feels like too much effort sometimes when you just want to sit down and relax and play a video game. So I don't know if I'd go back to it after that. It's like, it's a really well designed game, very much for car people. And if you're not a really hardcore car person, I don't think you're going to spend a lot of time with it. But I guess good for Game Pass? Question mark.
Great for Game Pass. I think that's true of all Forza Motorsports, and it makes way more sense to have a single game rather than like the 3 or 4 that we had last generation. There was too many of the same thing, essentially. Do you think games like this, so I would say probably since the PS2 era, like full-on simulation car racing games have been the benchmark game for visual quality. And that's why I think a lot of people play these games. Like, a lot of people may not be car people, but they play them because they look really good. It's obviously the easiest game to make look really realistic.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like, and I think maybe with GT7, it's like diminishing returns to the point where I'm not that impressed by that anymore because that's what they looked like last gen.
Yeah.
Is it one of those?
Yeah, car games have looked really, really good for a really long time, and I don't like it's clearly easy 60 frames. I don't know what the resolution, like, I'm not Digital Foundry.
It'd be 4K, probably.
Yeah, but like maybe there's some stuttering or some drop like in cutscenes, but like never when you're driving. And I had performance mode on. There's performance mode with ray tracing. There's like a couple different views, but like if you want it to be smooth and silky smooth and race, great. If you want it to be like some sort of visual feast, you can turn on the make it prettier, but maybe my frame rate goes to 30. I don't know. Like nothing that I saw made me go, ooh, wow. Like, and there's no spectacle. It's like there's not like fireworks like Forza and like bright colors. It's just like, here is a racetrack and you're going to see this same corner like 16 more times because you just keep hitting this corner. And there's like some fun involved in, like, I started off just holding the gas pedal down and following the blue line and letting the braking and stuff happen.
So you go.
But like I was enjoying myself enough that I then started to at least not have my foot on the gas when I was taking the corners. And then I started like doing the actual braking and stuff. So if you wanted to learn how to drive better, like there's something in this for you. If you don't care, you're not going to magically be like, wow, this is my newfound goal in life. It would be cool if you could, like, I'm sure if you have a, like, that setup with all the monitors and like an actual racing rig, like that will be cool. There's no, I guess you could play it in Meta Quest 3 now. Have you seen that?
Yeah, well, I saw that it exists, but
yeah, you can't play this in VR, but you can get a Meta Quest headset now and sit down on your couch with a big headset on your face and have a virtual TV in front of you instead of your real TV. It doesn't make it VR. It just like puts a bigger screen, I guess, in front of your face. That's dumb. Like, maybe if you're a real race car driver and they fix the monetary stuff. I know there was a big hubbub about, like real world, super expensive cars and like you couldn't rent things for free. I think they've changed a lot of that in Gran Turismo 7. Like, I don't know, like car people, this is a car people game, but Gran Turismo 7's in VR. So if like you really want to totally immerse yourself, that still has a one-up on Forza. But they're very niche for car people. Like, give it a go, especially if you have it on Game Pass. Like, you might enjoy it, but you might just go like, this is very technical and I'm not enjoying it.
Well, I think that's always been the thing, and people would have bought Forza Motorsport 5 because it launched with the Xbox One. It was clearly the best looking game, and it looked very next gen. And I think historically people have bought the new fancy car racing game because of that, not necessarily because they're a super hardcore petrol head. But this is coming out so late in the generation for the first installment in the series that maybe that's gone a little bit. But then on the flip side, it's on Game Pass, so you don't have to actually pay for it. You can just try it. So it's hard to know what's going to happen.
Well, so I was bouncing back and forth between this and Forza 6 when I was previewing Forza Motorsport 6 and Forza Motorsport. You know, how the names mean nothing anymore. Like, Mortal Kombat 1 goes back to this. So Motorsport 6 is older than Motorsport No Number. I was playing that. I think there's a 7 between
there's a 7,
there.
Yeah.
It, like, visually couldn't tell you what's improved. Because, like, it's a car game. They kind of look really, really good. This is very more simulator in terms of, like, tire wear and all that kind of stuff. I know that much. Like, that's the huge change. Like, very technical. More of a Gran Turismo experience from my understanding of how these car games work. But, like, at a certain point, that's only going to matter to people who are very, very invested into car games. So if you have Game Pass, I guess give Motorsport a try. And if you sort of like it, but you're kind of like, why am I just going around lap, you also have access to Horizon 5 and 4 and maybe 3. I don't know what Game Pass has. Like, you'll probably enjoy those more. It's the Top Gear thing. Do you like the Top Gear for the comedy? Go Horizon. Do you like the Top Gear for, like, the glamour shots of the cars and the talk about torque and blah, blah, blah? Like, then play Motorsport.
Do that, yeah.
Case closed.
Nailed it.
Have you been playing sports things?
I have played about 3 hours of Cricket 24, so it's going to be that strange thing where by the time you listen to this, there may well be a review of this when I played a bunch more, but we're recording this slightly early, so I've only played a little bit. The game that's not out yet, so I know about 20 people in the world have played it because I got a trophy which was on 0%, and then I got it and it went to 5%. Have this trophy, so
jeez.
That's how many people, but it's not out yet, so that's why. It's not out yet, and not many people review cricket, but we are one of them. It's it's like the opposite of NHL and EAFC, whatever it's called. It's like they're the annual franchises with a big budget behind them from the global sport publisher. This is from Big Ant Studios in Melbourne, which is very much the niche sport developer, and they've kind of crafted that for themselves. Fair to say, a lot of hits and misses in that series. AFL 23 being the most recent big miss, which is their last game. We've talked about that before. It only just came out on Xbox like a week before the grand final, which is ridiculous. Like
Still made it before the season ended, so it technically still counts as AFL 23.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't see that earlier. It must have been a contractual issue, and they didn't just release it as AFL 24 with a bit more finish to it. But cricket's their jam. It's the one they've done a bunch of. They started it about 10 years ago, and it's steadily gotten better since then. It started good. Like it's way better than any of the EA games, or I think Codemasters made some cricket games at some point. You can probably go back and read all our old reviews and get the theme of it, because they've built on all of them. And so the main difference is, unlike your NHL and your EA FIFA football clubs, until like now, basically, they didn't really have any licenses. So the very first Don Bradman Cricket had no license, but it had a sneaky button where you could just magically place all the fake teams with the community-made teams, and it would change like Shane War to Shane Warne or something. And it's like, now you've got the real person there. And so now they've got real licenses. They've done actual motion capture. This has been a thing for a while, but it started with just a few teams, and now they've got a bunch of international teams, a bunch of the local competitions like the Big Bash here, which just makes it a lot more accessible to play. You can just get in and play. You don't have to worry about any dodgy team replacements. That community stuff's still there, but if you just want to play, you can play with actual players. So that makes a big difference. I think for the casual fan, that makes a big difference too. It's a lot more accessible from that point of view. It makes the career mode work better because you're not getting dodgy fake players against your like pro player. They're all pretty well legit now. And so kind of that alongside the general presentation has improved again. And that's kind of that's what they're focusing on now. They're pretty happy with the gameplay. I think it's pretty strong as far as all their games go. This is by far the strongest. It's relatively faithful, especially if you mainly want to bat. If you want to bowl in field, it's a bit slow, I find. But if you just want to score and you just want to hit the ball around, that's kind of the main thing, which I suppose is similar to like the baseball games that Sony release. Having only played a few hours, it feels a bit more polished, but still missing that final coat, which is it's just where the budget seems to lack, and that's kind of the thing they always struggle with. There's always just some weird glitches. Big Ant are notorious for using their first kind of early adopters as testers, basically, and releasing a million patches and eventually getting the game good. That was what Cricket 22 was, and I think we didn't review it because of that. We got it late because they were kind of hiding it a bit.
Yeah, it's the same reason we didn't touch AFL 23.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the first 3 to 6 months, it was not in a good way. But the final game, which eventually came to Game Pass, was pretty good. This one's at least launched pretty close to that state. Like it's way more polished, but it's just following on from that. It's similar to where it's not reinventing that much stuff. It's just presenting it better. So in terms of tweaks to mechanics, we haven't played enough to really delve into that just yet. But it looks better. Still some weird, fielding glitches and players just not grabbing the ball properly and things like that, which is just always the way in these games. No doubt they will fix that in a few months. But definitely one of the stronger ones. They're kind of getting to the point now of diminishing returns. It's not a franchise that needs annual releases, and it doesn't have one. At the moment, they're kind of every 2 or 3 years they release a new one. It doesn't need the squad updates that most other international sports do, but it kind of does because they didn't have the license to begin with. Instead of updating the squads, it's more about adding new ones that weren't there previously. It's like full teams that didn't exist before. And we're not talking small teams. We're talking like Pakistan, like teams with millions of people who follow this. But I think all the international teams are there now. So, it's complicated. It's not like FIFA where you just pay one license fee and you get all the leagues. They need to negotiate, I think, with each international body individually, and that's why it's complicated. But definitely improving from that point of view. It's kind of gets to the point of how much do you want to play these games? How much, because they do have the cheap community replace the dodgy players with somewhat legit ones. Do you want to keep buying each installment, or do you want to just kind of stick with one and not necessarily get those improvements? And that probably goes back to what type of player are you? Are you a casual, occasional play like I am with, say, a tennis game? I don't mind playing the odd one, but I don't need to play each one. It's how I am with FC Club now too, to be honest. But if you're really hardcore, if you're someone that likes cricket in the same way that you like NHL, probably is worth it. And so it's probably that level of, do you want to keep investing? And it isn't annual. It's very much a single, or every second year. And based on the previous few, I would suggest this will be on Game Pass in about 6 months.
It's a weird thing because, and I think this is true. You tell me if I'm wrong or you think I'm wrong. Like, and we were talking about it last week with Assassin's Creed. Like, if you, and I guess the same thing would apply kind of to a Call of Duty. Like, if you give a team less than a year, to make the new one every single time, and they're kind of having to just kind of like pump things out, or if you give them a year or 2 or 3 between releases, theoretically that release is going to become stronger because they have more time to polish it. Whereas I think Big Ant, if they're not making a cricket game, they're making an AFL game, and if they're not making an AFL game, they're making a tennis game. Like, I don't think there's a dedicated team that kind of gets to stick with cricket. So
no, probably a few people do, I suspect. We don't know, not a fact-based show. We could probably ask them. But yeah, I suppose also their formula of releasing a game just to get it out there and using the community to find your glitches for you means that you're patching it for longer.
Yeah.
So that time that could be spent making the next game means that one's on the back foot. And it's kind of the nature of sticking in that niche sport market where they don't have time to necessarily just stick with one thing. They need to make as many as they can. But cricket's definitely one they've got right. It's the one that they've made the most of. It's the one that they keep following through with, and they at least start with a quality foundation. Whereas AFL was the first one they'd done in about 10 years. They were starting from scratch, basically, and they did not give themselves enough time. So a huge difference there. Cricket also has a massive market. Like, AFL is a small little corner of Australia. Cricket is played by so many nations across the world. It just happens to not be any of the ones that make games. It's not played in Japan, America, or the European nations that develop games. So that's probably why they struggle. It's just not in the big game, the big markets that publishers see as the big markets. It's played in some massive parts of the world.
Well, and you're early in, but it and you've said it seems more stable. Like, AFL had, instances where you were, on the attack and the AI didn't realize they should try to stop you. Like, there's nothing, as far as you can see this thus far, like that incredibly game breaking. So that's a positive
Nothing
sign.
like that. Definitely a lot more polished, even than Cricket 22 was when it launched. It was more like Cricket 19, which I think that one was probably the most successful launch they've had. But again, that was pre-COVID. It was a bit of a different time. It was coming off a few successful ones. So it feels like they're getting a bit more back to that. And almost this is, if you'd stepped away for a few years or the last few installments, maybe this is the one to go back to. Not definitive because I haven't played that much yet.
Nice. Well, when you think it's stable enough to make a verdict on, we'll talk, or we'll tell people to go read. We'll do either or. That was enough sport for 1 year, I think, though.
Yeah, we're done. That's our sports show for the year.
Brilliant. All right, well, we'll see you back next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Oh, yes, I do. There's there's a Star Trek game that no one cares about but me. There's a Mario game. There's a Spider-Man game. October is a big month, so let's just get through it together and then have a big nap.
We'll talk about some of those. I don't know which one. Hopefully we have time to play some.
Yeah. See you next week.
See ya.